All right.
Right.
Tech used to be escape from war. Today it's on the front lines. From server farms to semiconductors, global conflict is no longer just political, it's about to get digital. So, welcome to Tech at Risk, a special edition live from Line Predep. I'm Rahima Wasti, as you all know, and I'm thrilled to be joined today by a voice you absolutely want to hear in times like these. Our guest is Philip Cutting, a tech analyst, strategic thinker, and the founder of Line Predep. Philip brings years of insight at the intersection of technology, infrastructure, and leadership. Today, we are unpacking what global conflict really means for innovation in 2025, especially as tensions in regions like Iran and Israel and Russia and Ukraine continue to escalate. So, yeah, Phil, what do you think about that?
Oh, thanks, Rahima. It's great to be here. First of all, as far as my thoughts about the Iran, Israel, Russia, China, where it seems like things are trying to go get pushed to.
Yeah.
Um, it's exciting, right? So right now, the headlines might be focused on the military stage, on the
Mhm.
military side, and stages of everybody's kind of aggressions and anxieties, but there's real digital impact that we need to be concerned about, and that's kind of what we're going to talk about here because there's fighting and terrible things happening right now, but there's a ripple effect that's already reaching all many of our servers and affecting many of our startups, and even affecting the security layers, the data transport layers of the communication systems around the world. So it's very exciting right now. It's very interesting.
Yeah, so let's begin with the Middle East right now. The recent escalation between Iran and Israel hasn't only heightened military tensions; it has also triggered regional internet blackouts as well. So GPS jamming and threats to major
Mhm.
data routes as well.
Yeah, exactly. And what people often miss is that uh, these kind of deeply buried fiber optic cables, they
Mhm.
run through some strategic checkpoints in the Middle East, like the Red Sea and the Strait of Hormuz. Just earlier this year, we saw how damage to four of the undersea cables from a ship in the Red Sea region, heightened conflict by heightened conflict in Yemen, caused massive effects in communication speeds around the world. And when you have effects like that, yes, there is
Yeah.
satellites and there's other ways to consume bandwidth, but it starts to affect everybody. It's the system is so much based on predictable usage and kind of the most economical streams to use data that things shift very quickly. And if you're not prepared,
Mhm.
you can be directly affected by things that happen in the Straits of Hormuz and the Red Sea and places that you never imagined could affect you
Mhm.
will start affecting you. Never mind if we have some terror hits in the states because we are more and more um, engaging. Some people say putting our nose where it doesn't belong. I'm not going to go that far, but obviously we're engaging in more thick conflicts than we ever have before and more directly. So we have to be prepared to change our plan and to adapt to make sure that our businesses, if they are affected, they're not devastated. So we
Yeah,
have to keep those awareness of threats and how it's going to affect us.
absolutely. And let's not forget about the fact that governments and telecom authorities are tightening regulations as a response. So
Yep.
platforms and cloud services with infrastructure in a near in or near those regions are now facing compliance headaches and operational uncertainty as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And great example, right, is Oracle and Microsoft Azure both operate data centers in the Middle East. And
Yeah.
during the 23-24 initial Israel conflict, Azure's availability zones in Israel experienced
Mhm.
brief outages, which caused services to be rerouted and latency spikes across the globe, just like I was mentioning before, on their men and cloud regions.
Yeah,
So
that's quite significant.
yeah, this is a direct example of when we saw how it had these ripple effects that
Hmm.
really went out past regions.
Yeah.
Um, and so these effects just don't affect those local users. They distribute across the entire technical infrastructure, and can have lasting consequences, because, well, just just look at what happens when you lose your customers, right? None of your customers are going to say, hey, the services were down because something happened in the Middle East. They're just going to go to the company that's going to provide them services, and uh assume that in these situations they were a better fit for you anyways. So anything you can do to prevent getting that initial loss of customers is a huge deal.
Yeah, that's quite significant. These outages don't just affect local users, they ripple out to global platforms as well.
Yeah, yeah, and the ripple effect isn't limited to the Middle East. The UK and
Mhm.
Russia situation continues to destabilize all of Eastern Europeans' tech workforce. And before the invasion, Ukraine, for example, was home of more than 200,000 IT professionals, a huge body of labor, and ranked as a top outsourcing destination for US, EU, and even Russian companies were using them a lot.
All right. And I remember in early 2022, companies like Grammarly and GitLab, which had larger developer teams in Ukraine, had to shift overnight to protocols and distributed operations.
Exactly, right. And this is why I'm such a big fan of DevOps, right? But however you get there, many companies are implemented backup operations in Poland, Romania, and even the Balkans. And the Ukrainian software firms like SoftServe and Lexoff had to quickly decentralize their teams to keep delivering for their Western clients despite the war. Just like I said, you have to, whatever you have to do to make sure that you have some buffer not to lose your clients, because they tend not to come back once you've kind of injured that relationship in certain ways. Now, yeah, I know a lot of companies, their clients were very forgiving. Some of them even said, hey, I understand you guys are in warfare. Some of my friends in Ukraine were like, I have clients that
Mhm.
are just bending over backwards, give me time extension, understand that I don't have electricity for a few days, all kinds of stuff. But a lot of clients aren't so forgiving. So love on them if they are, but try to make it so that they don't have to forgive you. Business
Yeah,
buddy.
and absolutely. So let's shift to what this means for business now. With all of this volatility, what should founders and tech leaders be thinking about right now?
Simple, beautiful word, resilience, right? You cannot build a fast scaling company in 2025 without building to withstand global shocks. And this isn't theory anymore. Yeah, we have all the tools that we've been using all along, but now it's time to really implement them in meaningful ways. And so it's not there anymore. We got to take all these concepts and make
Mhm.
them operational ready so that we're able to recover quickly.
All right. And do you think, Phil, that there are any specific strategies that you're seeing among the companies that are staying ahead of this?
Absolutely. So there's let's see. I say there's three key ones that come to mind, right?
Mhm.
First off is geographic redundancy. We're seeing startups run in multi-cloud platforms like AWS, Azure, and even smaller providers
Yeah.
to make sure that they are continuously able to deliver. This is why I'm a big fan of AWS. They make it easy for you to do this. You just have to make sure that you built your system in a way that's easy to pull up and pull down and put back up. So make sure you use some of those DevOps. Second is there's geopolitical risks, risk modeling, and this is something
Mhm.
that's used used to be reserved for large companies, but now it's moving down into many startups playbooks,
Yes.
which is, hey, looking at these situations, where are these hotspots? Just like I said before, like, hey, if you're in the States, what's going to happen if there's a localized terror attack or a power attack on the power grid, or we don't have resources that we used to buying that your company may rely on. Right, start
Yeah.
planning for that so that you have those redundancies in your systems, in your physical systems also. And third, it's regulatory pre-auditing. And
Yeah.
what's that is anticipating how sanctions, for example,
Mhm.
or internet governance could affect across access to your key systems or compliance. And even more so, what would happen if legislation was affected to some of your key resources. Easy
Yeah.
thing to keep in mind. Uh, keep an eye on some of the AI systems that you're using,
Mhm.
because in the States, they may say, hey, an American company using XYZ AI will not be allowed to do business, right? You're going to have to find another solution. So try to build in that flexibility ahead of time. Just think about it. See how you can be able to swing with those punches.
Yeah, so about that regulatory piece is definitely huge. For example, during the escalation with Iran in early 2024, several Western platforms restricted developer API access in the region due to sanctions. Even
Mhm.
open source contributors got affected as well.
Yeah, exactly. It's not even about hosting infrastructure in safe zones. It's about ensuring that your tools and your platforms and even your team members aren't inadvertently cut off. Founders
Mhm.
have to map each tech dependency in a way that they can handle those swings and maintain that political awareness and environmental awareness.
All right. So, since you brought up infrastructure, let's just talk about it from chips to clouds. Why are tech supply chains so vulnerable right now?
Because the modern tech stack is deeply global, yet
Mhm.
optimized for cost over resilience, right? So we're trying to save the pennies, every penny possible, especially with startups, right? It's like, how do we ink out an extra 1% of profit, for example? But
Yeah.
all that profit is great until the day when you've sacrificed all your flexibility and you don't have any kind of backup plans and secondary options when things go poorly. And we just have to understand they might, right? Like some of our just you may not even know it, right? But some of
Mhm.
your resources that your systems are built on, the APIs that your systems are built on, they may say, hey, we are tired of this nation and we're going to block out all their users, right? We don't like how they think. Or, maybe maybe even in the States, they'll be like, hey, this company, we know they voted for Trump, or we know they voted for Kamala, right? We
Yeah.
don't believe in that. So we're just going to block them, boycott them because of that. So I'm not saying you give into that, but
Mhm.
whatever it is, you should be prepared to have uh, read backups in case things go oddly. For example,
Yeah.
let's see, the Taiwan immediately comes to mind, right?
Yeah.
We know there's a lot of semiconductors and processors and chips that are coming out of Taiwan,
Mhm.
and even even the Straits of Hormuz, right? We know that 40% of the world's goods are delivered through there. So we know we have some definite um, infrastructure points and change of distribution that are very sensitive that we have to be able to plan for. If I was in Nvidia, for example, I'm sure they have 2 or 3 redundant options for any kind of tech solution that they have. Actually, I'm
Yeah.
kind of curious what NVIDIA does.
Yeah, absolutely. So even the companies like Nvidia are feeling this. Their production partners in Taiwan and logistics partners in Central Europe as well both experienced supply bottlenecks this year.
Yeah, yeah, you've nailed it. I haven't been monitoring this, but there's been a lot of rumors and kind of like a little bit of I've seen a few articles kind of talking about it, but I haven't seen how bad they're affected.
Mhm.
So it's interesting. I hate to say it's exciting, but it's certainly interesting. And cloud infrastructure is not immune either, right? So Cloudflare, for
Mhm.
instance, had to route traffic away from multiple points of presence near the conflict zones in both Eastern Europe and in the Middle East. And that led to an increase in latency and some minor outages for several of the SaaS companies that they had in the first quarter of this year. So it's
All right. Mhm.
yeah, it can spread out quick.
Yeah, and then there's cyber. A recent Mandiant report highlighted a 61% increase in state-linked cyber intrusions or infrastructure providers since the start of 2024.
Hmm. Absolutely. And these are highly coordinated campaigns targeting not just governments, but DNS
Mhm.
servers, GBT, uh, BG, I always say this mixed up,
Yeah,
BGP hijacks and cloud container misconfigurations. And
yeah.
security teams are no longer just patching things, right? They're defending like war rooms. I had I use A2 sometimes, and last year,
Mhm.
uh, we had an outage, and we called them up. We were digging into it, and they're
Mhm.
like, "Yeah, yeah, you guys, you got hacked. Nobody else was affected." And we started digging into it, and this isn't being up on A2, right? But later on, we while digging through it, we're like, "Hey guys, look here and here,
Mhm.
because the problem is above us on this particular VPS." And they come back to like, "Wow, we didn't even realize that. We fixed that." But it's surprising the assault that all these cloud companies are under. A2 is a hosting service that's like Hostinger or any of the other big, Bluehost or whatnot. But it's happening to all of them. They're just kind of sweeping it under the rug and trying not to admit it.
Yeah. All right. So, in a landscape like this, how do companies keep innovating without collapsing under instability?
Oh,
What's your
such a good
opinion?
question. Yeah, yeah. Um, you have to be mindful of it. So I would start with the mindset shift and treat geopolitical resilience like you treat user growth, right? Plan for failure, mirror your data, right? Do all the kind of backups and DevOps processes that you think you should do in the future, and start just doing them sooner. Just have those fallback systems, and test them, and not just on paper, but do live drills. Tear down the system, and see what happens. See if you can make your system have a backup, or how it can respond if you lose access to one of your major APIs, or see what happens if you have to rebuild your whole system and move it off of, for example, AWS, right? So, uh, who knows that AWS isn't going to come back and say, "Hey, the political times have changed. There's sanctions against your company because you're in this field, and we just wiped your whole stuff out. We just wiped you out because it's better than dealing with the government, or whatever government." And this can happen, right? And they might even come back and say, "Hey guys, we're super sorry. We made a mistake. You're actually not classified as terrorist. We didn't realize you were selling marshmallows, or whatever," right? And then you're out of business, right? Even if they're right or wrong. So be prepared to go through real drills, see what it takes to totally recover your systems if you don't
Mhm.
have access to them. If you're using an online database system like PlanetScale, for example, are you downloading those backups? Are you getting access to those? Or if you get cut off from that system and they just cut your system out, remove your access, are you in trouble? Did you just lose your entire business because you haven't been doing periodic downloads on your own? It can
Yeah.
happen. I've heard of such horror stories, not with AWS, But with other systems where they had the whole infrastructure set up, they were banned and they lost all their clients. They lost all their data, not just hours of data,
Absolutely.
years of data and infrastructure. And they didn't have the DevOps to build it up and tear it back down. And they didn't have the data backup, and they went out of business. And they grew back up, right? But they never got that swing, that momentum back that they lost. So these little things, if it's your business and if it's your baby, think about how to have your developers do automated backups at certain times to local devices or to your home computer, right? Something that's off the cloud that nobody can take from you. Have it, even if GitHub burns all your code in your accounts, right? I can never imagine GitHub, but imagine they do. What would happen? What would happen if somehow the whole GitHub infrastructure was taken out? Would you have backups?
That's
Would you
crazy.
have to call your developers from 5 years ago to pull it
Mm.
together? Would you have your environmental variables? Would you have all those configuration files that are sensitive and should be secured? Do you have those backed up physically, or are they in a super secure place that you don't even have a collection of them and you can't reproduce them? Be able
Absolutely.
to turn off the internet and reproduce your whole system from your home.
Yeah, that's so right. And are you seeing any leaders that are really getting this right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So, for example, there's some fintech platforms in Africa, and they're increasingly running shadow systems on local and on global cloud setups. And they've learned from instability and wars and localized conflicts. Also, startups working in the health tech and logistics fields are now running cross-border engineering pods to avoid productivity blackouts. And even more, there's like challenges with different countries like China. If you're having services in China, they want you to have their systems physically there. You you want to have those redundant systems there. You want to be able to build them up
Mhm.
and put them down, but you have to understand how the laws and the politics are going to affect how you do that physical and that localization backup solutions.
Absolutely. Is there any leadership, obviously, and leadership needs to get fluent in policy too. You can't delegate understanding of sanctions, data localization, or infrastructure compliance. It needs to live uh, at C-suite level.
Yeah, yeah, this is exactly right. And you don't need to. You can't just have great products, right? You need stable ecosystems, and the founders who design for disruption are going to be the same ones that who keep building, even when the whole world tilts or falls out of whack.
Absolutely. So that was the point from Iran to Israel, from Ukraine to global cloud networks. Tech is definitely got in the crossfire, but the story doesn't have to be collapse. It can be about adaptation too.
Yeah, and I think that's a big deal. So I don't want to come off sounding like resilience is just a buzzword, right? It's something that's important, and it's really the way how you look at it. It's your blueprint to how you
Mhm.
approach a sustainable and long running company. And now more than ever, tech leaders need to make it a part of how they think, how they hire, how they build, and how they, I'd even say how like they breathe and handle what's going to be thrown at them in these coming years.
Absolutely. So we're gonna open the platform to our viewers too, and they're having some questions from us. Here we are having with tensions like Israel versus Iran affecting global internet routes. How do you think we should rethink our approach to app performance and hosting?
Mm, that's a good question. How and this is a good kind of question overall.
Mm-hmm.
I've worked on some projects for African nations, and there's a few kind of fun things that came into this. One was sporadic internet.
Yeah.
One is also sporadic power supplies, and another is inconsistent understanding of what words, language, or even images mean across certain cultures. So by having this experience, it kind of helps me realize we can create systems that are very robust and easy for devices. It's also a very popular Android concept, and I think progressive web apps have it fairly well by nature that you can have processes that run online and offline with internet, without internet, and you can store things and cache things in a way so that if you don't have access to existing internet, you can still use your product to some degree. And there is going to become more and more the ability to use AI locally versus what just having it in real time access. But when you have a mission critical component to your business, look at how it's going to behave in degraded situations, right? So an example is say you have an AI chatbot, or say you have an AI system that helps you create content for your blog, right? Just say it's a marketing system that does this. You can have this beautiful AI systems run in the back end with great communications going back and forth, asynchronous chatting and text, text ideas, and kind of leading you through the conversation on how to write a great article, for example. But if you don't have internet at the moment, are you going to just have your whole app not work at all? At least what's the next best step? To say, hey, we don't have internet connection. We're in a degraded mode. Let them know what the problem is, obviously, in the first place, so they understand what mode they're in. It should be very easy. And then they can maybe still go and write stuff and put notes and create that content. And then you have, what's the next best thing, right? They come back online and they have a way to refresh and check everything. Okay, cool. Even better, when they come online, there's a wizard saying, hey, you're going from offline to online now. Would you like us to do a special process to help bridge that? So instead of just making some assumptions now you can say, hey, okay, this is what I want you to do, this is what I want you to do, and this is what I want you to do. Get some feedback and kind of give some options, because now you have a bigger chunk of information and you have to see what makes sense to walk them through when they come back online. Just think about your process. And this was very contrived, right? And maybe not well organized, but it's the first thing that came to mind. So prepare for having inconsistent access and what to do in levels of degradation. Maybe you want to be able to deal with situations where you have just very slow internet. And how do you show videos? YouTube has this problem. They upgrade and downgrade the quality of the video that you have based on the speed of your internet. When you're thinking like this, right away, you're going to start solving a lot of the problems, and you're going to kind of war game what can happen and how to handle that. The next best thing, DevOps. What's going to happen if you lose this entire API or this access to this region that you built up? Can you instantly, will your system automatically move over? Will it reconstruct on another system? Do you have a separate host system that you have sitting there ready to go if there's a downtime? How have you considered the priority of your clients, right? Because even AWS has occasionally 1 minute per month or so downtime. Can your system handle that? Do you have another system set up that is not going to suffer those same downtimes? How important is it for your clients to have constant access? And what happens when this happens, right? Do you have warnings? You're going to get a bunch of phone calls from clients that are like, hey, I just had this blurb. I lost my data. What's going to happen? It all depends on how you set up your system, and just troubleshoot what's the most important places and what's going to hurt your business or make you profit, and then decide what has the best return on that. And just don't focus on profit. There's a balance between focusing on things that are going to kill your business and profits versus just what's going to make you the most money.
Yeah. So that was answer to your question, Marish. Do you believe there's another question here? I'm gonna reiterate it. Do you believe innovation can thrive under pressure, like we've seen in Ukraine's tech scene, or does it always need peace to grow?
I think adversity makes us stronger in almost any situation. So when
Mhm.
I think it may turn out even better in some regards. Yeah, when I'm looking at the messes going on in Ukraine, wow, right? But those companies that grew, they improved their systems. They're probably stronger now than
Mhm.
they've ever been.
Absolutely.
And they've learned how to decentralize. They've learned how to adapt to the situation. I think it makes you better. I think good times and peaceful times sometimes makes us lazy. So
Yeah.
I believe that being able to deal with crazy stuff that comes up makes you stronger, and it makes you have a mindset that you can fight through challenges, that you are stronger than you believe you were, and you can overcome this, because you're a badass or because you have a potential to be that bad son of a gun.
Yeah. So that was great. Thank you so much for joining us on Tech at Risk, you guys. Special thanks to Philip Cutting, founder of Plan ProDev, for his sharp insights in this topic. We'll see you next time. Until then, build smarter, plan deeper, and keep your innovation resilient. Take care of
And a big
yourself.
thanks to you, Rima. It was a pleasure. Thanks for the question, guys. Catch you later.
Take care.